Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi ho, everybody, and welcome back to D Plus Us, the show about all things Disney. I'm one of your hosts, Griffin Tennell, Griffey D-Pad. With me, as always, the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Mitch George. How are you doing tonight?
I messed up the audio on my side, and the intro was really, really loud in my ears.
Oh, so you're dying right now?
A little bit.
Because that is not a quiet intro. That intro
No,
is
it is not. But we're
loud.
going to power through anyway.
What's up, folks?
We're
Welcome.
definitely not using my recording.
We're off the rails already, and we are all 40
Woo!
seconds in. What's up,
You know
folks?
me.
We got one heck of a show for you guys today. We are talking today about Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, the second film in this jaunt we are doing through the three movies. The first three.
5 movies.
Are we doing 4 and 5? I will do 4 and 5.
I'll do them. They're terrible, but I'll do it. I don't care.
All right, we'll do 4 and 5.
I got nothing else to do.
Of course.
Although we have a whole list of things we do want to do, so we should probably focus on something good instead of those dumpster fires.
It's all right. A little peek behind the curtain, folks, as time recording is. The first episode that we recorded for this isn't out. I still have that stashed.
Oh. Yeah, I guess we're gonna bank a few because you're doing a thing soon.
Yeah, I'm doing the thing, moving and stuff, which I'm debating on whether or not I make a video about that, but that's mostly just...
We also got to figure out if we're gonna do Spider-Man weekly or just at the end.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I think it's going to depend on...
I actually don't know. I actually don't know what the
release
release schedule is for that. I should probably look it up.
weekly if it releases weekly, but that's beside the point. That's a little time capsule for y'all when we're recording this. We're talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, releasing to the world on June 7th, 2006. Or, sorry, July 7th, 2006, with a pretty interesting and pretty unique premiere that I just want to call out. Because they premiered this movie at Disneyland.
Oh, at the Hyperion Theater?
No,
Or
not
whatever it was called at the time.
Like, yeah, in actual Disney. I forget the actual specifics of it. Yeah, they did a whole event there and stuff. It was insane. Looking back, I see why they don't do those anymore. Although I guess they tried with Haunted Mansion. It didn't work out. But budget, though, of $225 million. Box office of $1.066 billion. Directed by Gore Verbinski.
That's billion with a B.
Billion with a B. Directed by Gore Verbinski, starring Johnny Depp, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Stellan Skarsgård coming in, killing it, and Bill Nighy, Jack Davenport, Kevin R. McNally, Jonathan Pryce. This is cast. This cast is stacked, but I think like as far as the cast goes, I mean the big shout out here definitely goes to Bill Nighy coming in as Davy Jones.
So I was reading a little bit more into the premiere. Then Governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and his wife attended the premiere.
You know, every once in a while that pops up, kind of like a jump scare.
The fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a Republican governor of the state of California for a few years.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things that happened, and for the most part,
It doesn't say where they actually showed the movie, and that's what I was reading through this article for. So CBS News, you're disappointing me.
Okay, we're gonna figure this out.
No, it's fine. Let's get back to it. I already derailed this like 4 times.
Well, I want to know though, like it's an interesting thing, right, to premiere this kind of thing at a theme park.
It's true.
I wouldn't be surprised if honestly they took over like the area that Pirates is in. Say I'm looking at Box Office Mojo now to find this out.
So dead air. It's fine. Yeah, what's interesting too about the premiere of this film is it was the first Disney film to use the CG Walt Disney Pictures logo.
Oh yeah, it
The
was,
2006
wasn't it?
logo. Yeah.
I've gotten so used to that. logo.
Which stood until 2022 when they launched the Disney 100 logo, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, which is the same but slightly different.
Kind of just like, yeah.
They literally just said let's go at the castle from the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not finding it. I'm giving up.
Good call.
we'll figure this out after the show. Anyways, Pirates of the Caribbean 2. Mitch, love this franchise, love this series. What do you think of the second movie?
This for me, just to put it into perspective, came out when I was 14. And 14-year-old me absolutely adored this movie. This for me was probably like, if you were a kid during the Star Wars era and Empire came out, like this was my Empire, which is crazy to think about given we've lived through Infinity War Endgame, we've lived through Spider-Man No Way Home, we've lived through a few other moments like that in our cinematic lifetime. But for me, this was that first, holy moly, they're really going off the rip. Like they're really taking something that I loved with the first Pirates movie and going kind of balls to the wall crazy with it in a way I didn't expect. And I was all about it when I was younger.
Yeah, I've watched this movie
It's not a great movie, but I love it.
See, I would tell you this is a great movie. I love this movie. It's also very much a part one.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was watching this movie and like, yeah, when I first saw this movie, I was like 8.
Young.
I was
you were young.
a child. And I have a fun story actually around that. Because I happened to have, like, not long after the release of either, was this one or the third one? My family and I took a Disney cruise.
Okay.
And it was right when they had put in the Black Pearl at Castaway Cay. It was the first time it was there. But they also had the Flying Dutchman. Which the Dutchman is just this terrifying ship. Seeing it in real life, equally terrifying. Just so you know. As a child. But yeah, I love this movie. I've watched this franchise over so many times at this point. Only now to realize just how much further they take this one versus the first one. Like, this one gets dark fast. This movie starts off on a somber note, and it's like, no, that's going to be the underscore of all of our action here, and I love it so much. Like, Jack's entire plot running for his life, everyone essentially is just trying to save their own lives in this movie. It's awesome. Yes, Mitch.
I got your answer.
Oh, yeah.
So the first Pirates film debuted at Disneyland as well. And all of the Pirates films, at least the first 4 Pirates films, all premiered at Disneyland. And they set up a screen along the rivers of America.
Okay, so yeah, over by Pirates. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I bet you that they set up the screen over like where Fantasmic is.
Well, what's interesting too about exactly, it was on Tom Sawyer Island where Fantasmic is. But what's interesting too, specifically about the premiere of this film, is in addition to folks in the park or who bought tickets or were invited to see the film, it was also when they launched the revamped Pirates attraction with Jack Sparrow and everything. So like there was a lot going on Pirates wise in the park at that point. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, that would be cool I wish they would do stuff like that again. Like, obviously I know why they don't. That is a massive money sink, but it would be nice. You know, if we're going to keep trying to make stuff like, the Haunted Mansion movie or other movies based off of attractions, go for it.
So there have been a number of film premieres at the Disneyland park. Typically, it looks like they would use the AMC in downtown Disney as a typical venue. But there is, at least from this, one instance of them using the Hyperion Theater. And you'll never guess what film it was for.
You're probably right. I have no idea.
It was Disney's The Lone Ranger.
What?
Yeah.
It's such a weirdly specific instance.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why, but that is a thing that happened.
That movie sucks.
I also know, like, most recently, the Haunted Mansion film premiered at California Adventure, probably at the Hyperion Theater.
California Adventure?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, it was the Hyperion Theater. But there was no cast present
no cast
at the
present.
premiere of the Haunted Mansion because the SAG-AFTRA strike. Exactly.
just feels weird that it would do it over there instead of in land where the attraction is. But I guess it makes sense because of the theater and whatnot. But
Easier to set up the Hyperion. Well, at that time, the Hyperion Theater was empty.
true, because
This was
they were
before
getting ready
Rogers,
for
Rogers the musical.
Wonder what they're gonna put there next.
Let us know in the comments what you think they might drop in there.
Anyways, bringing it back. Yeah, I love this movie. This movie is incredible. I think this is what cements it for me as such a fantastic franchise. The fight scenes are some of the best.
It is the Empire. It's the Empire Strikes Back of pirates.
For me, there are like two of my favorite moments of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise are in this movie, particularly some of Jack Sparrow's and Elizabeth Swann's conversations, and then just the fight on the water wheel is still to this day one of the coolest fight scenes in a movie, period.
Had TikTok been around when this film came out, I feel like everyone on Movie Talk would have flipped out over that water wheel scene the same way they did for Fierro doing his dancing through life thing in the most recent Wicked film.
Same. But also, speaking of that, like, wild that they let them do that with how dangerous that was.
Absolutely. The insurance for that must have been astronomical.
They wouldn't insure it.
Yeah.
Like, they literally, there's a interview they did where, like, yeah, the studio didn't want to let this happen. The studio was not about to let us insure this. But the wild thing about this is, for a movie with such amazing CG, right, with like this one, it's like that water wheel fight is entirely practical.
Well, that's what I love the most about this franchise, and I think it loses a bit of that steam as we get into later entries, but the mix of practical and CG effects, like this has some of the most beautiful vista shots, some of the, like, the cinematography like, to where we are in our viewing in these first two films is out of this world. Especially you've got like that whole island with like the native tribe that does their whole thing that we'll get to. There's some wonderful shots there. And just the natural aspect of what Gore Verbinski and his team were able to create here on the water, paired with how good the CG is in this movie specifically, it's really impressive. Even now, looking back on it, 18 years later, or 19
where they'll
almost.
pair these like massively large vista shots with close-ins to some of the characters. We see it in the opening with Elizabeth at the altar, and it is the coolest shit. Like, it genuinely really sells it and makes you feel for these characters. Like, this is a sequel, right? So by this time, we already know the characters. We already care for them. But I feel like this just brings you in even more. Like, you genuinely hurt when, like, he hands over the warrant for their arrest, and it's actually Elizabeth's. Like, it's just so good. Everything about this movie, the editing, the cinematography, the music, Hans Zimmer kills it in a way that Hans Zimmer always does. Like, everything just pulls you into that world.
It does a great job of subverting your expectations at times, which is hard to do for a film here that's trying to toe the line between something that's for kids and something that can be for adults, which Disney has always done a really good job with, especially looking at their other brands like Pixar. It was really refreshing at the time, and continues to be a movie that I go back to and watch probably once a year, if not, every other year. We do a bit of a rewatch of these films. They're a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting on this one, I'm quickly checking these. Yeah, both of these are PG-13 movies, like this and the original. And you can tell, like, this one is on the significantly older end of that PG-13.
They're pushing the envelope for sure.
And I love it. I think that rating of going older, I think, plays itself out best with the Flying Dutchman crew. Like, the Flying Dutchman crew and Davy Jones especially all look so damn cool. I mean, to this day, it's still one of the greatest instances of a CG character.
It's also creepy without being scary. And I think the first film did that really well too, with the idea of the curse. And like, the characters were creepy when they were haunted, but they weren't scary.
Mm-hmm. Except for the one,
and I think
that's supposed to be.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie so much. I really think with the crew though, especially like starting it with Bootstrap Bill, and then getting into like someone who is like partially, it's not CG, but it is like this, the starfish and the barnacles and the stuff to get on.
Mix of practical and at times special effects, right?
And then to get on, like, it's great because like it's the dipping your toe into that, to the where we eventually then get to Will sneaking onto the ship, and it's fully like, no, this dude's a shark.
Yeah.
Like
And
Davy
you got the
Jones
dude
is
that's like built into the ship.
where we'll see more of that next episode or next movie. Yeah, I think this is so good. It looks so great, and like the Dutchman as well looks really good. The Dutchman being this very impractical ship on, like, if you look at like how it's actually created, like it just doesn't.
But
really
it's
make
supernatural,
sense.
so
Yeah.
it makes sense, right?
And then the Kraken, like the Kraken, you would think would look terrible, but it doesn't. Like that. The
What they
Kraken looks
do
good.
best, what they do best there is they hide it, right? You don't see the Kraken in its entirety until the climax of the third film, if I remember correctly.
I mean, no, we see it at
And-
the very end here. With we
Well,
don't
you
see
see,
this in
like, the
entirety,
mouth.
but yeah,
Yeah, but like they're doing a lot with not like they're doing a lot with what they have, and I think we talked about this a few times with films where, or going back to our talk through of Agatha All Along, where the budget was X and they stretched that budget as far as they could, but they had to find ways to make it work within the framing of the, in this case, show, where they can only do so much with so little. And while this film did have a friggin' ridiculous budget, they knew that trying to animate that Kraken would have been,
like they just
tenuous
didn't
at
have the
times.
tech yet. Like I love
Exactly.
the shot. Our first shot of like the Kraken actually doing its thing is just that boat just gets pulled under,
Yeah, it just cracks in
cracks
two
in
and it's
half and
gone.
And then this one, like,
it's
I
the
also
jaw-
think it's very much playing around your budget and playing with what you have, but there's also kind of that horror movie element of it, right? Where it's like the monster is always scarier until you've seen it.
I mean, it's the Jaws scenario,
Yeah.
right?
But it also
Keep it
makes
hidden.
that
It doesn't.
it makes that final scene that much more powerful, I think. Of this is our first time really seeing what this creature is, what this creature can do.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, they used every ounce of their gunpowder and liquor to try to blow this thing up, and it did nothing.
Not the rum.
And Jack just eventually sacrifices himself to it, whether you want to consider it by his choice or by Elizabeth's.
Yeah.
Like that shot of him, like standing about to attack in the center of the Kraken's mouth. It's just a great ending.
Yeah, I think another thing too, if you look at something like this and like more of the rationale behind not showing the creature off in its entirety is Kraken don't exist, right? So you're trying to figure out what this mythological creature is going to look like and visualize it for this new generation. And without having a great frame of reference, like, all right, it's going to be a giant octopus. But like, how can we make this thing feel like a threat? And it's the ripple in the water. It's the tentacles. It's not the entirety of the thing, because then you sort of, you bring down that illusion. I think it's a masterful mechanic that they have to just have this thing at Davy's beck and call.
Oh yeah, and for what it's worth,
it's just so
like,
good.
the Kraken is a mythical creature stories have been told for centuries. But I think this is the only one I can think of that like very much depicts the Kraken in this way. I'm sure there's some older movies that use the Kraken for some stuff, but I feel like this is the only time I've seen something like this that is actually terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is 20,000 Leagues with the giant squid. But again, or something like Jaws, but it's a shark. I think it was a really, really nice, not necessarily homage to those films, but way to modernize a little bit of what those films did really well with their MacGuffin, or their foil in this case, and bring that in here as this big bad to steer away from. And it really does set the expectation early as to why Jack is as crazy as he is, because he knows what's coming, no one else does. And he tries to stay the hell out of Dodge.
Gibbs has this great line at the beginning of the movie where it's, what is foreboding to Jack Sparrow is foreboding to us all.
Yeah.
and it's like it perfectly encapsulate what's going on. I love Jack as a character of being this person who knows exactly what is going on, but being so much of an unreliable narrator that you just never know if he's really telling the truth, even though he like almost always is. Like he tells the truth significantly more often than he lies in these films, and it's always fun to see that play with that. Like, there's that line between like him and Commodore Norrington. They're not Commodore anymore, just Norrington, where he's like, "You told the truth." He's like, "Yeah, I do that an awful lot."
It's just hard to tell.
Yeah, God, Norrington in this film, man, like, I love that
Real
character.
piece of shit.
He's such a great like antagonist because he's just an asshole, but also like the dude just had his life fucked over by this guy. It kind of makes sense why he'd want to kill him. And ultimately, you know, him and then the backing of the East India Trading Company, like them kind of revealing themselves in this, the true villains, if you want to give one, to this franchise. I stand by that.
You're telling me that the true villain of this thing was the monarchy all along? Color me shocked.
I mean, I was going to tell you not even the monarchy, just the giant business that's backing shit.
Capitalism. Western expansion.
Yeah. Like I love them doing this. Like it's set in such a great time, like the end of piracy. Like I think that's why stuff like this, stuff like Assassin's Creed Black Flag in video games, why it works is because it's the end of this era. It is, you know, there's only so many left. Like they say, like Tortuga is the only free port. It's the only pirate port. It just adds this sense of almost smallness to the world in a world that is literally defined by the open ocean and how vast it is.
Yeah, there's a finality to the stories that are being told in this time frame, just given where the world is going. I mean, obviously, this is all a work of fiction, but with as with anything, where you frame that fiction definitely adds itself as a storytelling element to whatever it is you're trying to, you know, show to the audience, and it's really masterfully delivered.
Now we got another.
I say masterfully, like it's not a good movie, like it's not a cinematic masterpiece, but it's a really fun popcorn flick.
Yeah, I mean, I would tell you this is again. I'm higher on this as per usual, but I mean, this thing was beloved when it came out. Like, it was being
audiences loved it, critics less so.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's as with most things.
This is also at a time where it's like critics were almost more wary then than today of a computer generated character.
That's also very
but
true.
I think like the biggest note on this one is that like no, people thought that Davy Jones was prosthetic makeup at the time. Like reviewers genuinely thought that. It's one where it's like looking back on some of them, I see some things like, you know, I'm looking just through like with Wikipedia, like Mark Kermode of The Observer calling it lumpen direction, lousy writing, and pouting performances. And then it's like the worst thing about it is its length, which I would agree with. I think this is a long-ass movie.
Yeah, there's probably about 15 or 20 minutes that could have been cut.
But I would also tell you that about every single movie in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
Yeah.
Like, every single one of them has 15 to 20
the-
minutes that don't need to be there.
4 and 5 have about 2.5 hours that don't need to be there. But that's
Yeah, that was just those are just mistakes.
they're definitely films.
There's one more new character to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet, and that is Tia Dalma. The addition of Tia Dalma, who is, to this day, to me, and largely this is because of the Kingdom Keepers books, highly recommend, just a terrifying character.
Yeah.
The power she has is terrifying. But yeah, introducing, you know, this kind of voodoo priestess character into all of this that just all of these pirates are wary of. And
I mean, I just love the homages back to the original attraction because there's no reason for them to be in a swamp, but they are.
They are, yeah.
Because the whole Pirates attraction in Disneyland opens in the bayou, the Blue Bayou specifically. And I really enjoyed that nod back to the attraction. again, there isn't as much here as there was in the first film that ties it back to the original attraction. At this point, it really is standing on the laurels of its own storytelling, its own character development, and its own themes, its own sort of narrative design. But that was nice to see.
Yeah. And I want to especially like with that shout out Naomi Harris, who just kills it as Tia Dalma in this
Awesome.
and in the third
Awesome
movie, which
portrayal.
we'll get to. Like, she plays an all-knowing kind of creepy weirdo in the woods so well that it's just like, okay, yeah. Also, of course you would have dealings with Jack Sparrow. Like it just
not?
makes so much sense. I love this stuff. Got a couple of fun facts for you on this one. Bringing it back to Davy Jones here. There were two other actors that were considered for the role, both who I think would have been interesting takes on it. The first being Christopher Walken, who I'm like, okay, that would have been interesting. And the second being Ian McShane, who was later cast as Blackbeard in, I want to say, the fourth movie.
Yeah, because the fifth one was Javier Bardem.
Yeah, I mix up 4 and 5 a lot.
No, I mean they're largely forgettable, to be honest.
Aside from that, we got all of the people we love back. We got Cotton, we got Marty, we got the bird,
I got the monkey.
the monkey. I love that the monkey's just always around.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there is the cliffhanger at the end. To this day, again, one of my favorite cliffhangers in a movie ever.
Yeah, it was awesome.
We got this, like, wake for Jack Sparrow. And then Barbossa walks down the stairs.
Which the cast was not told that it was going to be him. They were told that it was going to be Zoe Saldana's pirate from the first movie. Which that's a blink and you'll miss it. Well, not necessarily cameo. This was still earlier in her career.
Which, honestly, that
they were
also
told,
would have been awesome. But Barbossa
at the time, I don't know if it would have meant as much.
Fair enough. I guess, yeah, Zoe Saldana was not the Zoe Saldana we know today.
No, 2006. I don't like. Avatar was what, 2011?
Something like that. Who cares about blue
Looking
people?
it up.
Um,
No one, but I'm 2009. So it was a little before that. I mean,
yeah,
she'd been in a
bringing-
few other things, so it would have been someone you could have recognized. But honestly, the idea of Barbossa coming down there and seeing the genuine reaction of the actors who didn't know he was coming back to the franchise in the scene, I think added a lot to that moment, which I thought was really cool.
I mean, Barbossa, the Barbossa Jack relationship is, to me, one of my favorite relationships in this series. So yeah, having him come back in that moment, like, blew little child Griffin's head, just blew my mind. But to this day, like, I can't imagine, like, not knowing that's coming. It feels almost like a Luke, I am your father moment for this franchise. It is, to this day, like, hands down, the moment of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Zoe Saldana's filmography, and there are a couple of things here you might have known her for, but really, it wasn't until 2009 with Star Trek and Avatar coming out that she really
Star
hit
Trek,
the,
then
hit the
Avatar, then
scene.
Guardians.
Well, yeah, Guardians was 2011. I think that's where
Yeah,
I
it was
got
right
that.
after.
Or 2014. Oh, wow. That was a lot later than I thought it was.
Man.
But yeah. Even I thought The Losers for some reason was before Star Trek, but it wasn't. It was after.
Yeah, funny how
The
that.
more you know.
Yeah.
Time is weird, man.
Trying to think of other characters throughout here. Governor Swan is still hilariously inept, but at least he's a decent guy now.
Yeah.
I love that they still address Isla de Muerta in this. Of like, no, yeah, Isla de Muerta sank back into the sea, and then no
That's all
more
you need.
discussion about Isla de Muerta again.
Nope.
It's
Don't
gone.
need it.
Don't worry about it. Pintel and Rigetti, always hilarious. Having the two, that two-person comedy duo in a movie like this always works well.
Yeah.
Bringing it back around, talking about we've really gone through most of the big parts of the plot. There's some really great stuff in here, though. Like the Black Mark, I think, is one that we kind of skipped past, but it's such a easy but great use. Like when Teodama pulls off the rag and everyone freaks out.
Mm-hmm. I think it does a great job of, again, continuing to build the mythos of what piracy. There it is. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Is in this world and in this narrative timeline. Just the fact that it's part of this, this lore that lives within the pirate sphere, I think, is really neat.
Mm-hmm.
And it plays it plays a really great MacGuffin, honestly, of like what they're running away from specifically, but still really really neat, really well orchestrated.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, yeah, everything there, getting the black spot, getting it removed by Teodama, the Kraken, fantastic. Everything about the key, and just like Jack consistently talking people around and like, trust me, this key is important. Liar's Dice, I think, is another really great addition into this world. This gambling game the pirates are playing for
years.
For years, yeah, off of their sentences. But also just like that whole moment of Will, Bill, and Davy Jones, like really showing these three characters in their best. Like it was such a tense, amazing moment in the film.
William and Billiam having just a swell time aboard this craft.
Mm-hmm. I love their dynamic in this one of just like, you can tell Bill is slightly disappointed that his kid ended up becoming a pirate, but he blames himself.
Exactly what he tried to have him not be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Will's just like, I got a thing I got to do. I'll deal with you later. It's a fun dynamic, and I think it really bodes well when it comes back around in the third movie.
Yep. Totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Going through the other stuff, Island Cruises, yeah, everything with that sword fight, cool. It's a really simple plot when you think about it.
Yeah, it doesn't set the world on fire, but it does a lot with what they've already set up in this world, and just kind of takes the supernatural aspect of it to 11. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the first movie, it was probably at like a 6.
Yeah, Norrington is great. Norrington again just kind of steals the show for me on this one. The Jar of Dirt, everything about the Jar of Dirt is so good.
I've got a jar of dirt. I've got a jar of dirt.
I mean, there was some meme, right? If it was like, there's something like, we have a Hulk, I've got a jar of dirt, I've got yada yada yada. You know what I'm referencing?
Yeah. The Avengers thing, and it ends with Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Like, it's such a good moment. And for it to play off so well as well, like putting the heart in.
And it is an Academy Award-winning film, winning the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, which is the first time that ILM had won that award since Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump? Really?
Forrest Gump.
Honestly,
also was nominated for Best Art Direction, Sound Editing, and Sound Mixing.
Honestly, though, if they're going to win for something, it should be for this movie. This movie is one of their best, I think. Obviously,
again, we've talked
Star Wars.
We've talked our butts off about the CG. Like it totally earned that award.
I'm just kind of curious now. Want to take a guess who else was nominated for that award that year?
I was about to bring it up.
Don't bring it up. You always do this to me. I'm doing it to you this time.
I know. Okay. I'm trying to think what else came out that year. God damn.
I will tell you this. There were 2 other movies nominated. I think you could get one of them. I don't think you'll get the other.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Pan's Labyrinth.
No.
Damn. What else came out that year that would have been on the Oscar scene?
So I'll give you one of them because I genuinely don't think you'll get this. One of them is the 2006 movie Poseidon. Based off of...
I actually really like that movie. That was the one where they were on the cruise ship and then it like capsizes.
Yeah, it capsizes.
Stuff, right?
Yeah.
That was a cool movie. I really like that movie.
And yeah, I'm curious if you get this other one. I will also, while you do it, I will shout out Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End for being nominated for this in 2007. and that release gap, but we'll get more on that next week or next episode. The other one was Superman Returns.
Huh.
That also released in
How about
2006. And then 2007, for what it's worth, was the beginning of the end. That's when Transformers came out. Oh,
Look, I watched Rise of the Beast today unironically because they're taking it off of Netflix. I actually like that movie a
was
lot.
that the most recent one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
There's that moment in that movie. Spoilers for Transformers: Rise of the Beast when Bumblebee comes back. So good, such a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're like I like that. I like the first Transformers and I like Bumblebee. The rest of them are kind like I love like I grew up on Beasties or Beast Wars, depending on what part of the world you're from. It was called Beasties in Canada because I guess they didn't want to associate it too closely with the idea of going to war. But yeah, I grew up on those toys. I love the Transformers toys of the 90s. And I've seen all of those movies, and some of them are definitely movies.
Oh yeah.
But I will still watch. I will sit down and watch any of those movies just because I enjoy the idea of giant robots fighting.
Oh yeah.
But like they're not good, apart from like those three that I mentioned.
They're mostly bad.
Yes, they are.
Those are the movies that taught me what a bad movie was. Anyways, bringing it back, I want to quickly shout out one more thing with the visual effects. Is that this film also won a BAFTA for their visual effects.
Makes sense.
Like we keep talking about how good they are, but like, no, we are not the only ones. The world knows this. I also want to shout out that this was in fact 2006, which means this movie did get a video game tie-in. Buena Vista Games still existed. This got video game tie-ins on the PSP, the Nintendo DS, and the Game Boy Advance.
Pretty sure I played the DS one
I played the Game Boy one.
or the GBA one.
I think I might still own the Game Boy one. I think it's in a box somewhere. That was one of those games, right, where it's like I had my Game Boy collection that I lost in a move, but we had like those 3 or 4 random GBA games that like somehow were not in that and just were randomly scattered around, and that was one of them. The other one was the Spider-Man 1 and 2 collection.
I'm still disappointed to this day. I don't know what happened, and I'm probably not going to find it until we sell my parents' house someday. Somehow I lost my copy of Pokemon TCG on the Game Boy Color, and I'm really disappointed that I never got to finish that on the Game Boy.
I'm disappointed. But yeah, that's Pirates of the Caribbean. I love this movie, love this franchise. Also love the additions that they ended up adding to the parks because of this movie. You know, it's something we've talked about to death. Go watch our Behind the Attraction episode on Pirates of the Caribbean if you really want to know more.
We probably also talked about it on the Imagineering Story one.
Oh, yeah.
We probably talked about it on the first Pirates one. We probably talked about it on like the 3 episodes of us going to the parks.
But them adding Davy Jones into it, I think, is so good. Davy Jones is such a foreboding character in all of this.
I really want to get to Hong Kong just to be able to experience that Pirates attraction.
Same.
Because it just seems so cool. They actually did the premiere of the 5th film in Hong Kong to tie into the opening of that attraction. So that's definitely a bucket list trip for me.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, folks, that's where we're going to wrap up this episode. Short one this week, but honestly, it makes sense for the movie. We will be back next
It's a cool movie. Go watch it.
Next episode, we will be talking about Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. We're talking about the 3rd in this trilogy, and then it sounds like we're also doing 4 and 5 because...
Nah, we'll find something else in that list of stuff that we actually want to watch.
Yeah, fair enough. Mitch, if people want to keep up with us, where can people find us?
At D+us on YouTube's the best spot. We're on the internet in other places as well, and should probably get into some other places, and I should start doing social more, but at D+us on YouTube is the best place to keep up with everything that we put out. At Griffey D-Pad on all the socials, at Mr. Mitch George, everywhere you can find it. Yeah.
I probably should make that Blue Sky account.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyways, folks, we will be back in the next episode, but until then, be good to each other and have a magical day.
I got a jar of dirt.